Hello all Royal Rangers, my name is Commander Matthew Kenslow and I'm over here in the United States of America, and I've been a Royal Ranger for 20 years and year number 7 as a commander. Thank you so much for checking out this video. The purpose of this video is to go over a merit. In these videos I'm going to walk through every one of the requirements. Now it's important to note that while watching these videos it will not give you the merit. You have to show to your commander that you have watched and learned from these videos. What I recommend you doing is taking down notes for each requirement and then show them to your commander for approval. Some of the purposes of Royal Rangers is to build knowledge, wisdom, skills, and leadership attributes while learning about God's Word and conserving His resources practically. And most importantly, to have fun doing it. So I'm Commander Matthew Kenslow from the United States of America, and be blessed.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Crime Prevention Merit. Let's begin with requirement 1. It says do the following. Define crime and crime prevention. Here's what a crime is. A crime is a serious violation of the law which includes felonies and misdemeanors, but not petty violations, also known as infraction of the law. A person may commit a crime either by acting in a way the law forbids or by failing to act as the law requires. Crime may be punishable by death, imprisonment, or by imposing fines or restrictions. Here's what an infraction is. It's not a criminal offense, rather a civil one. These include violating an ordinance, municipal code, traffic laws, administrative regulations, and such. And according to this graphic I found, it says it's punishable by fines and points on driving record only. There's no jail, probation, or prison term for infractions. A misdemeanor, on the other hand, is a criminal offense that is more serious than an infraction, but less serious than a felony. And these are punishable by fines, probation, and up to 1 year in jail, but no prison. There are different classes of misdemeanors that vary from state to state. Finally, a felony. This is the most serious class of offense. This is considered offensive to the moral standards. And these include terrorism, arson, murder, rape, kidnapping, robbery, treason, burglary, etc. And this is punishable by more than 1 year in prison, formal probation, and fines. And then in certain states, such as like California, Nevada, and others, there's wobblet and wobbler, which are kind of inside the gray area between two different types of crime. Another thing I want to point out is, look at misdemeanor down here. It says punishable by fines, probation, and up to 1 year in jail, but no prison. Well, what's the difference between jail and prison? How I was taught, a jail is like a holding place, like you commit a crime and they put you in jail while you wait trial in some circumstances. And then prison is the long-term punishment. You first go to jail, you go to trial, and then they may sentence you to prison. And like in the case of a misdemeanor, according to this graphic, there is no prison sentence. Okay, let's define crime prevention. Crime prevention is taking advanced action against a possible or probable crime, acting first to keep something from happening or to remove the opportunity for crime to occur. Now the next part is find 3 scripture verses that talk about crime and crime prevention. So I invite you to look things up in the concordance. If you don't yet know what a concordance is, it's usually in the back of the Bible. Or you could get a big book like Strong's Concordance, for example, and you look up places, words, names, and it gives you the scripture reference to where that's found. So think about what Jesus commands us to do. Think about what the law said to do for your neighbor. Think about a story where a crime was committed. And some key words to consider are commandment, crime, thou shalt, or you shall if you're not reading the King James. Not, like thou shalt not, for example. Okay, requirement 2. Tell what types of crimes are committed in your community. Make a 4-page notebook with newspaper clippings telling about crimes in your community. So this is a fun project that you could do, and you could work with other boys in your outpost. That way you're working together with others, and then you're going to put them all together. So the notebook can be an individual notebook that is filled with newspaper clippings or printouts from online periodicals, reporting crimes committed in your community specifically. Or it can be a patrol notebook working with other boys in your outpost, where you will all be collecting and putting in newspaper clippings reporting crimes in your community. If you're working in a group, you can start out with a bulletin board. Everybody in your group will look for newspaper clippings to display under an appropriate heading on the bulletin board, and we'll go over this soon. Later, you will all put the clippings into a group notebook and then submit it to your commander. Now, what's the purpose of this? The purpose of this is to help you understand the types of crimes committed in your community, as well as the frequency with which a type of crime occurs in your community. Whether doing this project yourself or in a patrol, it is encouraged that you use 12 by 18-inch sheets of construction paper for your notebook, at least 3 of them. Stack them and fold them in half like a notebook. Staple them together. Make a creative title page on the front cover. Inside, title one page White-Collar Crime, a second, Crimes Against People, a third, Crimes Against Animals, and a fourth, Crimes Against Property. Now allow me to advise you on how to organize this. If you made this in a group while utilizing a bulletin board, divide the space available into 4 quadrants, like I have in the slide, and title each section as you would for the notebook. So in the first quadrant, put white-collar crimes, and we'll talk more about this in a future requirement. But a white-collar crime is basically committed by a person in business or government, for example, and these are financially motivated non-violent crimes. Here's some examples. You have fraud. This is tricking someone for personal profit, such as using deception, cheating, swindling. You have embezzlement, which is stealing money that has been entrusted to you. And another one is bribery, which we'll talk about later on. Computer hacking is accessing valuable information without authorization. And theft is stealing from the place where you work, and typically includes embezzlement. In the next quadrant, put crimes against people. Some examples are rape, kidnapping, murder, which is killing unlawfully and with deliberate intent, robbery, which is unlawfully taking the property of another by force, and assault and battery, which is violently attacking someone either physically or verbally. And assault is usually coupled with battery. I invite you to look up the more complicated details, but assault is basically like a threat or inflicting fear on others, but once a person hits them or inflicts pain on them, that's usually when it's called battery. I might as well say this now. If you're researching some crimes in your area and you happen to run across murder, you might see first degree, second degree, or third degree by it. But what's the difference? First degree murder is where you have premeditation or forethought. You thought it out, you have a motive, and then you carry it out. And if the person hires a hitman, it's still first degree murder. Second degree murder is kind of like something came over the person right then and there. They didn't really have much, if any, premeditation, and they just got so angry and they murdered somebody. Okay, that's second degree. And then third degree murder is where you intended to inflict harm on a person, but not to the point of death, but they ended up dying anyway. That's third degree murder. Okay, now let's talk about the crimes against animals. You have cruelty, which is deliberately seeking to inflict pain and suffering on an animal. Neglect, which is failing to care for animals. Endangerment, which is exposing an animal to danger, harm, or loss. And finally, you have crimes against property. Graffiti, which are inscriptions, slogans, drawings, etc. that have been scratched, scribbled, or drawn, often crudely, on a wall or other public surfaces. Vandalism is the willful or malicious defacement or destruction, or basically tearing things apart, of public or private property. Burglary is breaking into a building or house with the intention of stealing. Theft is taking away another's property without his or her consent and with the intention of depriving the person of it. And finally, arson, which is intentionally setting fire to buildings or other property. So now I have a quick question. This is the merit design for the crime prevention merit, and my specific question narrows down to robbery and burglary. Now, is this person burglarizing or is he robbing? Well, he is committing burglary because he is breaking into somebody else's property. So at first this is crimes against property if they go in and steal something, and if they steal something, that's theft, which is crimes against property. But if they have a run-in with the owner and then try to steal something with force, then that's robbery, and that's crimes against people. So just a little difference between burglary and robbery, and oftentimes they go hand in hand. If they're burglarizing to murder somebody, if that guy's a hitman, then that's murder, and that's another crimes against people. So once you get your project done, what seems to be the main type of criminal activity in your community? What can be done to reduce these types of crime in your community? So ideally, you want a community that has a neighborhood watch program or similar community crime watch program, does not have a problem with graffiti or is cleaned up within a short period of time, has a crime prevention program in its schools. I mean, the school that you go to, if you go to a public school or even a private school, they probably have officers come over and give you a talk. I remember being a preschooler and all throughout elementary school and high school, and occasionally there would be police officers that would come and just educate us on crime and crime prevention and such. Respects the police and sheriff's department, has very few instances of shoplifting, and has little or no problems with gangs. Okay, requirement 3 is answer the following questions. A. Why are there laws, and what role do they play in society? We have laws so that we can live in an orderly manner with those around us. The law is supreme, which means that all persons, individuals, and governments are subject to the law. There are restrictions on the government's power and how it uses its power. Most laws must be enacted before they can be enforced. Judges and courts are independent from the rest of the government. Here in the United States, we are under federalism, which deals with the separation of power. We have the national government and then we have individual state governments. Article 6 of the original Constitution from 1787 deals with the ranking of laws. So we have the United States Constitution and the United States laws, and then underneath that we have the state government and the state laws, and underneath the state laws we have the local laws. Now lower laws cannot supersede higher laws. Just for a basic, from the top of my head, example, let's say that the national government says that the minimum driving age is 18. Well, no state law could change it to 16, for example. And I do highly encourage you one day to read and go over the Constitution, as well as commentary so that you could better understand it. And this last paragraph right here regarding judges and courts, you could read Article 3 of the Constitution for more information about the judicial branch. So what's this building right here? This is the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., United States of America. And this is where the legislative body is. So you see that you have the rotunda up here, and then you have two chambers. You have the north wing, which is the Senate, and then you have the south wing, which is the House of Representatives, facing this direction. And Article 1 of the Constitution has 10 sections, and it really goes over like the powers and the duties. In fact, Section 1 says, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So here is something that's found in Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution about how a bill becomes a law. You may have seen Schoolhouse Rock. I'm not going to really go over it in detail, but just wanted to give you a brief outline. Everything starts with a bill, which is like a proposed law, and Clause 1 of Section 7 says that if it's a revenue or tax bill, then it has to originate in the House. Other than that, it could be either the House or the Senate. It goes through committee, it gets debated, it gets argued, and hardly any of them pass, and then those that do go to the floor of that House, and then if it passes both houses of Congress, then it goes to the president, and he could sign it, he could veto it, he could pocket veto it, and such. And then Congress could override the veto by a 2/3 supermajority in both houses, and such. Or if the president signs it, then it becomes a law, it goes to the Supreme Court, and such. And that was a big, huge, quick rundown. There's a lot more to it, and you could research if you're interested in that. But over on this side, I had the three branches of government, the president, or the executive branch, Congress, or the legislative branch, and the courts, or the judicial branch. You have the Supreme Court, you have all the appellate courts, and then underneath the Court of Appeals, you have all the districts, and there could be 1 to 4 districts per state and such. That's part of the federal judiciary, as it's called. Now, the purpose of this big rock, paper, scissors game, or checks and balances, as proposed by the Founding Fathers, is to make sure that no branch is higher than the other, and that not any of them go above the law, that each one checks the other, and that there's a balance between the three. And these are for national laws, not to mention the state laws, the local laws. So laws are very important, but another reason why they have it this complicated is to make sure that we know that when we put something into law, we really looked over everything and debated over everything. We don't want to put things into law and then it just doesn't turn out. I mean, ask the people that written the 18th Amendment and then had to amend it with the 21st. But going to the local level where you're living at, basic local laws is to keep everybody safe. It's kind of the rule book. It's like in your house you have rules, in your school you have rules, in Royal Rangers you have rules, but in your community you have rules, and it's called the local laws. And of course they abide under the state laws, and then they abide under the national laws. But what are God's laws, and what role should they play in our society? In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve talked with God, and God gave them rules to live by. You and I know what happened after that, and here we are today. So God gave laws to Moses, who gave them to the people. Now both sets of laws should be obeyed. And I put an asterisk right there, because when God commanded the children of Israel to obey the laws, the animal sacrifices, everything, you could read the 27 chapters of Leviticus if you want to, but those had to be obeyed. Now Jesus came to fulfill and put an end to the law, so today we Christians do not have to obey the laws of God in the Old Testament, because that's back in the Old Covenant. And as for the 10 Commandments, yes, that's Old Testament too. However, Paul tells us, I believe it's in Romans, he tells us that those that were written before are for our learning. And it's also something that we should use as a moral compass for our lives. We should obey the 10 Commandments, not because we have to, because it's required for salvation, but because that is the moral law, that how to treat others. And besides, Jesus talks about that. Read the Sermon on the Mount, read the Gospels about how to treat one another. Love one another as God loves you. Love one another as you love yourself. And greater love has no one than this, than he who will lay his life down for his friends. John 15:13. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul. For this is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like unto this, that thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. That's the greatest commandment, Matthew 22:37-39, as well as the golden rule in Matthew 7:12. Do unto others what you would have them do unto you. Okay, so what role does law enforcement play in crime prevention? So here I found a graphic with a few different badges. You have basic police, city police, and then you have county sheriffs. So basically you have the United States. They're divided into the 50 states, and then the states are divided into counties, and then counties are divided into cities. We have law enforcement or police officers to enforce those laws in the city. And then for the entire county, we have sheriff and deputy sheriffs. They investigate crimes. They support neighborhood crime prevention programs. They support crime education in schools and community. They patrol high crime areas to see if doors and windows in businesses are shut and secured when the business is closed. What role do all citizens, including us Royal Rangers, play in crime prevention? We participate in neighborhood watch programs in our communities. So Neighborhood Watch is a cooperative effort between the police or sheriff's department and the community. It is designed to improve neighborhood safety, amplify the community surveillance, and to encourage mutual assistance and concern among neighbors. The goal is to reduce the incidence of crime, train citizens to conduct property security surveys, help them make their property more secure, and develop a program where neighbors help watch each other's property and report suspicious persons and activities to the police or sheriff's department. Organize a crime watch group at your school or in your community. Beware of strangers in your neighborhood or around your school. Inform an adult like your parents, your principal, your teacher, or police officer. Never walk alone after dark. Use a strong lock and chain to secure your bike to the rack at school. Make sure outdoor lights at home are operating correctly. And don't leave belongings such as bikes, skateboards, scooters, and such on the lawn or driveway at home. Here's a sheet that your commander will probably give you. Ask your commander for MLR4 and we'll give you a detailed list about how to keep from being a victim of a crime. It talks about knowing your surroundings, what to do when taking a walk, taking public transportation, if somebody tries to rob you, and driving around, especially when you get older and start driving. When should a crime be reported, and how is a crime reported? What is crime reporting? It is giving the proper authorities the information that you have about a crime that might be committed or has been committed. It is giving information about someone who was involved in committing a crime. How does reporting a crime help prevent crime? Reporting crimes can stop the crime before it happens. It can help identify problems that causes a crime to begin with. It's like learning something bad that happened before, and then you take appropriate measures to make sure that won't happen again. What should be reported? Thefts, assaults, with or without weapons, drug use or dealing, vandalism, graffiti, arson, sexual assaults, and people threatening to do any of these crimes. And this is important. Even if a person threatens to do any of these crimes, they should be reported. There was, in my neighborhood, there was a local high school that had shooting threats on social media, but the crime to be was reported and they caught the guys, preventing a school shooting. Report a crime immediately to the proper authorities. Don't wait. You can report a crime to anyone in authority. You can call, email, or put the information in a special box for the appropriate agency. Okay, so I have a little video activity that's common. You've probably seen it before, but the instructions count how many times the players wearing white passes the basketball. So you have to look very closely. There's going to be players wearing white and some wearing black, and both teams are passing the basketball to each other. Again, count how many times the players wearing white passes the ball. Not catches, but passes. Okay, so say out loud, how many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15. But did you see the gorilla? Let's watch it again. Okay, so I'm not sure if you've seen that before, and I don't know, nowadays you probably naturally see the gorilla. If you did, that's fine. If you didn't, that's fine. Here's the point. When reporting a crime, it is important to be alert and vigilant. I mean, that's our first point of the Royal Ranger Code, is being alert, mentally, physically, and spiritually. You have to give as many accurate details as possible, so stay focused. How old was the person? What was the person's skin color? Was it a man or a woman? How tall was the person? How much did the person weigh? Or at least approximately. Did the person have any unique characteristics? Did you see any scars? Did you see any tattoos? Any jewelry? Any unusual facial characteristics? What was the make, model, color, and license number of the vehicle? Were there any noticeable damages or dents on it? What was the direction that the vehicle was traveling? Stuff like that. It's important to stay focused and be alert, lest you neglect to see a gorilla right there in the middle of it. Okay, again, the point was to be alert, be vigilant, and look at the big picture. Try to look for and remember every detail that you can. Tell what happened, when, and where. Tell if anyone was hurt. Here's another reference sheet, MLR2, and it talks all about crime reporting. So there's a few of these MLR resources or reference sheets. So I encourage you to ask your commander to give you all of them for this merit, because these are great references. And you could look at them years from now. You could go over it with your family, maybe once a year, every other year, with your future family, and even your school or children's church or Royal Rangers if you're not doing this merit as a group. And hey, you could start a club at your school to keep crime from your community. Okay, requirement 4. Answer the following questions on the impact of crime. A. How does crime affect prices paid for items in a store? Fraud and abuse cost U.S. organizations billions of dollars annually. The average organization loses money each day per employee to fraud and abuse, as well as a percentage of its total annual revenue to fraud and abuse committed by its own employees. We pay for products in the stores at higher costs. Something happens to a store, in order for them to be supported, they have to raise the prices. Crimes in the United States cost every man, woman, and child thousands of dollars per year, depending on the crime, including violent and nonviolent crimes, as well as white-collar crimes. B. What is the impact of crime or vandalism on a school? So for this one, I'd like for you to talk with your principal or teacher, since each school is different and each school has its own background history of getting to where it is today. So talk with them, ask questions, and take down notes for your commander. C. What is the impact of gangs on a community, and how do their activities impact a community? A gang is a group of people who claim an area in a city. They then use it to make money through illegal activities, such as drug trafficking. Gangs can be organized based upon race and ethnicity. Members generally range from the ages of 8 to 22. Members of gangs wear specific articles of clothing to be recognized as part of the group. These include bandanas, hats, scarves of certain color, or gang-related tattoos or symbols. Gangs are leading factors for growth of violent crimes both on and off school property. When joining a gang, there is typically an initiation that needs to be passed. This initiation is usually a violent crime that could include theft, murder, gang rape, or drive-by shootings. Gang members are more likely to be arrested or involved with drugs and alcohol than non-gang members. Recently, gangs are participating in more non-traditional crimes, such as prostitution, human trafficking, identity theft, and mortgage fraud. And finally, neighborhood-based gangs are more threatening for violent crimes in the U.S. versus national-level street gangs, prison gangs, and outlaw motorcycle gangs. And very quickly, I do want to recommend a movie, and it's called Courageous. D. What impact does crime have on an individual that commits a crime, and what are the consequences? If convicted, he or she may spend time in jail or prison. If convicted of murder, he or she may be executed. He or she may leave the country to avoid being arrested and put in jail. If they do so and they're caught, they could be extradited back to the United States. A criminal record will follow him or her after leaving jail or prison, so it's be hard for them to find a job. His or her family suffers by being separated from the family member who committed the crime, enduring the shame of having a family member involved in criminal activities and being watched by law enforcement personnel. E. How does the illegal sale and use of drugs lead to other crimes? When a person uses drugs, they become dependent upon those drugs. If the drugs are illegal, such as heroin, the person must pay a drug dealer for the drug. The cost of these drugs is very high. In order to pay for the drugs, a person who has become an addict must steal from his family, friends, a business, or a bank in order to pay for the drugs. Okay, requirement 5. Define white-collar crime and tell what effects it has on all of us. So as I said earlier, a white-collar crime isn't necessarily a violent crime. It's more of a crime among, let's say, business owners, government personnel, and such. This could involve bribery, blackmail, and such, so we'll be talking about it. A white-collar crime is a crime, such as fraud, embezzlement, bribery, etc., committed by a person in business, government, or profession in the course of occupational activities. These are financially motivated, nonviolent crimes. White-collar crime costs everyone money, hundreds of billions annually. Fraud. This is using deception, such as lying and cheating, in order to gain money or possessions. Embezzlement. This is theft, stealing funds for one's own use after being entrusted with them. An example that I gave my outpost when I taught this is, back when I was a carnival ticket seller at the Orange County Fair, and I was responsible typically for thousands of dollars every day while working at the fair. And if I were to have stolen, which I would have never done because I'm a Royal Ranger, I'm honest, I do not lie, cheat, or steal, then that would be some form of embezzlement. Usually these people are able to beat the system, account for missing money by their swindling and such. So yeah, that's another example of a white-collar crime. Bribery. This is giving money to somebody so that they can act in your favor, and can also serve as hush money. In fact, it's Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution, I believe, that talks about, what could get a official such as a president or vice president or other officers impeached, and that bribery is included. It says that they could be removed on conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay, so how do we citizens pay for a crime? We pay for products in the stores at higher costs. We pay to keep criminals in prison, our taxpayer dollars basically. And we have higher insurance rates for cars, businesses, and organizations. Okay, requirement 6. Define child abuse and tell how to recognize it. Child abuse is hurting or not caring for a child. It can be physical, hurting the child's body, or it can be emotional, criticizing how a child thinks or feels. There are two basic ways to tell if a child is being abused. One is by looking at the child for physical signs of abuse, and the other is by observing how the child acts. Signs of physical abuse include unexplained bruises, welts, or cuts, unexplained burns, has trouble walking or sitting, needs to go to the bathroom often, has continuing digestive problems, behind in physical development, afraid to go home, one-worded response, doesn't make close friendships, seeks attention all the time, thinks little of himself or herself, low self-esteem, constantly grumpy or irritable, injures him or herself, changes his or her story, speech problems, has a pale face and blank stare, etc. It is against the law to hurt a child. You must report it when you suspect a child is being abused. Talk to your parents, teacher, principal, pastor, or commanders. They are responsible for reporting the suspected abuse to the proper authorities. And here's another MLR reference sheet that can be included in your packet. Okay, requirement 7. Determine if your community and home are safe from criminal activity. Do the following. A. Conduct a crime prevention survey in your community and share the results with your commander. So here's an MWS page that you could request your commander to give you to guide you in this survey. B. Tell what a neighborhood or community can do to lower the crime rate. So I want you to think about this and write some ideas down. So for example, set up a neighborhood watch program. C. Conduct a security survey of your home and discuss the results with your family. Here's another MWS page that you could request of your commander to help guide you through the survey. D. Tell how you can protect your family, your friends, and yourself from becoming victims of crime. When your commander gives you this one, which is MLR 4, I invite you to study it, go over it with your family, and then report back to your commander. Okay, requirement 8. Explain what can be done to help individuals who have been involved or victimized by criminal activity. Okay, this is 8A. Interview a chaplain from a detention facility or jail. Report your findings. Some questions to consider are: what is the main problem facing a person who has been put in jail? What is a typical day for a prisoner? If you could do anything that you wanted to do for a prisoner, what would it be? How many prisoners become Christians after they are put in prison? Discuss gang activities in prison. Why do they occur? How do prisoners get illegal drugs? What can we do to help you? Okay, 8B. Define Teen Challenge and explain its mission. Tell how someone who needs help from Teen Challenge can get that help. Here's another reference sheet that tells you all about the history of Teen Challenge that your commander will probably give you. But in summary, Teen Challenge is the oldest, largest, and most successful substance abuse prevention and treatment program in the world, with more than 350 locations worldwide. It was founded in 1958 by the late Reverend David Wilkerson, an Assemblies of God pastor. The mission of Teen Challenge is to provide community-based drug education, prevention, and restoration programs on a national and international basis. Create a framework that challenges people to live out their fullest potential spiritually, socially, emotionally, and occupationally. Develop and nurture the transformation of restored individuals into useful, productive, law-abiding citizens committed to Christian faith, values, and living. Someone who needs help from Teen Challenge can contact an Assemblies of God pastor for a referral to a center or contact a center directly. Many centers offer weekly support group meetings and a one-year residential program for adults. The weekly support meetings help the local church establish an effective small group ministry for people with life-controlling problems. Okay, 8C. Explain what a person can do if they have been a victim of violent crime. Explain how you can help that person. What a victim can do. Call the police. Tell someone in authority, such as a parent, teacher, principal, or commander, so that person can contact law enforcement. Use a telephone reporting system that takes the information and sends it to the appropriate agency where a system is available. How you can help a victim. Use email or websites to report the crime. Show your support and concern. Victims often experience feelings of helplessness, guilt, and isolation. Listen. Don't blame the victim for doing something foolish or for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Keep your opinions and questions to yourself. The victim may want to talk or may not want to discuss the experience. Help with things like repairing broken locks or windows, babysitting, or school assignments. Offer to go with a victim on visits to the police, doctor, victim services, or court. Know what services can help. Check with law enforcement, local government, the district attorney, or a mental health agency. So congratulations, you got a great start on the crime prevention merit. The next step is to show your commander everything that you've done. Fill out that notebook, whether you did it yourself or with a group of fellow rangers. Ask your commander for those merit worksheets and those MLR reference sheets so that you could assemble them in a packet and then go over them with your family. So once again, good job and keep up the good work.